Craig, a grumpy but lovable dragon, swooped down from the sky. His emerald scales glistened in the sunlight as he flew over the medieval village, casting a large shadow that made the villagers look up in awe and fear. Craig was known for his temper, but today he had a different plan in mind. He snatched Princess Petunia from the castle garden with a swift and practiced motion. The princess, known for her grace and poise, barely had time to react as she was lifted into the air. The villagers gasped, but no one dared to challenge the mighty dragon. Petunia, clutching her embroidery hoop, was surprisingly calm. She had always been a composed and collected individual, even in the face of danger. As she looked down at the shrinking castle, she wondered what adventures awaited her. Craig took her to his lair, a cave overflowing with treasures. Gold, jewels, and ancient artifacts filled every corner. Craig licked his lips, his eyes gleaming with a mix of hunger and curiosity. He had never captured a princess before, and he was eager to see what made them so special. He imagined a tasty princess snack, his stomach growling in anticipation. But there was something about Petunia's calm demeanor that made him hesitate. She didn't scream or beg for her life. Instead, she looked around the cave with mild interest. Craig threw his head back and roared, "You're my prisoner!" His voice echoed through the cave, shaking loose a few pebbles from the ceiling. Petunia, ever polite, curtsied. "Thank you," she said with a smile. "It's a bit dusty in here, don't you think?" Craig blinked, taken aback by her response. He wasn't used to polite prisoners. Most of them would be trembling in fear or trying to escape, but Petunia was different. She seemed almost comfortable. He wasn't used to polite prisoners. This unexpected turn of events left Craig puzzled. What was he supposed to do with a princess who wasn't afraid of him? As he pondered this, Petunia began to tidy up the cave, humming a cheerful tune. Craig watched in bewilderment, wondering if he had bitten off more than he could chew. Craig paced back and forth, his claws clicking against the stone floor of his cave. He was in a dilemma, a predicament that no dragon had ever faced before. Eating princesses was dragon tradition, a rite of passage that had been followed for centuries. It was almost a sacred duty, but Petunia wasn't screaming or crying. She wasn't even trembling. Instead, she sat calmly, her eyes scanning the cave with curiosity. She was inspecting his treasure pile, her fingers delicately touching the gold coins and precious gems as if she were in a market. "This ruby is nice," she commented, holding it up to the light. Her voice was calm, almost casual, "but it clashes with your drapes." Craig's stomach grumbled loudly, a reminder of his hunger and the tradition he was supposed to uphold. He told himself princesses were food, not interior decorators. But Petunia was right. The ruby did clash. Craig sighed, feeling more conflicted than ever. Maybe he could ransom her instead. It was an unconventional idea, but perhaps it was time for a new tradition. After all, Petunia was unlike any princess he had ever encountered. Ransom?" Petunia giggled. "You're so old-fashioned, Craig." She pulled out her needlepoint. "My royal allowance is much more impressive." Craig was offended. He was a fearsome dragon, not a fashion faux pas. Petunia bit off a thread. "Besides," she said, "who would dust all this treasure if I left?" Craig looked around his lair. She was right, it was a mess. Craig slumped down. He felt confused and, strangely, a little lonely. He admitted, "I don't know what to do with you." Petunia smiled. "Well," she said, "you could always try being friends with me." Craig snorted. Dragons didn't have friends, especially not princess friends, but Petunia seemed to mean it, and she did have excellent taste in interior design. Craig spent the afternoon helping Petunia rearrange his treasure. The dragon's lair, usually a place of solitude and silence, was now filled with laughter and the clinking of gold coins. Petunia's eyes sparkled as she discovered hidden gems and ancient artifacts. Craig couldn't help but smile at her enthusiasm. He even let her use some rubies for a new embroidery project. Petunia's nimble fingers worked magic with the rubies, creating intricate patterns that shimmered in the dim light of the cave. Craig watched in awe, realizing that his treasure had never looked so beautiful. He had to admit having a princess around wasn't so bad. Her presence brought a warmth to the cave that Craig had never felt before. They shared stories of their past adventures, laughing at the funny moments and sighing at the sad ones. They drank tea and discussed tapestry patterns. Petunia had a keen eye for design, and Craig found himself genuinely interested in her ideas. They planned a grand tapestry that would tell the story of their unlikely friendship. Craig had never felt so happy. The days of guarding his treasure alone seemed like a distant memory. Now he had a friend who appreciated his hoard as much as he did, if not more. Maybe, he thought, some traditions were meant to be broken. Dragons were known for their solitary nature, but Craig was beginning to see the value in companionship. The old ways didn't seem as important anymore. Maybe a dragon's best friend could be a princess. As they continued to bond, Craig realized that true friendship could come from the most unexpected places. And in Petunia, he had found a friend for life.